Hello, welcome to Skull RPG Podcast. My name's Dwight Skull.
My name's Jacob Skull.
And today we're going to teach you how to
Tell
tell
your
your story.
So, Dwight, I've noticed with a lot of GMs, their story revolves normally around you're at a bar, some guy stares you down, and he sells you a map or he wants you to go do something. And then after that, it becomes this very same thing of, oh, hey, I gotta go here, I gotta go here, and I gotta go here. There's no sense of player agency, so you kind of railroad them to where you want them to go as a DM. And there's not a lot of, oh, hey, we actually chose to go here that then got us here.
Right, it's like the worst part of it's basically like you're playing, you're quote unquote playing a book.
Yeah.
You don't get real a choice, you have to play a book. And so what a railroad's exactly that, because if you go off of that predetermined area, the train derails. So I guess your question more is, how do you not do that?
How do you not do that?
Okay. So if I am running a game, what I like to do is I try to find at least three, sometimes I'll aim for four different options to take a player where they need to go. And I actually will just draw it out. I'll take a piece of paper and I'll start with the hook, which of course sadly is probably the guy staring you down in the tavern. Now I try to do a better job than that, but you have to have a single event that is causing your players to get involved.
Yeah.
And then off of that event, though, what I would like to do is not just have the guy go, oh, well, check out the Eerie Castle on the hill, because now you've railroaded your players.
They have to check the Eerie Castle. There's nothing they can do except
What else you want to do? I'm going to go dig in every garbage bin and look for clues. Well, that doesn't make any sense. I have
Go
no
check
idea.
the Eerie Castle.
Go check the
told
Eerie.
you.
Yeah, exactly. I told you what to do. But that's the problem. You told me what to do.
Mm-hmm.
What I want is an option of what to do, right?
Yeah.
And so what I will do is I'll build out 3 or 4 choices. And so if my hook is there, my hook might say, he might have a piece of paper for me, and on the piece of paper, hastily scrawled is something like Castle on the Hill, a guy's name, maybe another location, and maybe an idea.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And it's even more dramatic if right after they get hired or kind of negotiate, or even before they've negotiated, that something weird happens and that guy dies.
Or is gone. He might still be alive, but you don't know that yet.
Well, no, like a dramatic,
Yeah.
something dramatic, because what's cool about that is all of a sudden it's like, oh, wait, now the lights went out and maybe some stuff went down, like there's a lot of commotion. The next thing you know, when the lights finally come back on,
You see his body, or he's gone.
Obviously, it's easier to do with electricity, but you know what I mean? Like if you could, maybe there's like
Magical darkness spell.
Magical darkness spell is a great example, or even like a wind, like a gust of
To
wind
knock all the torches out.
knocks everything out. And by the time stuff finally gets done, like all that's left is this crumpled piece of paper, and he's gone. Oh, okay. So what's going on? Well, on the piece of paper is these 3 things, and then what I would do in my own is I would actually plot out those 3 things. And I don't also like to do like, oh, you went to one thing and now you have one thing, and you went to one thing and now you have one thing.
Have 3 things lead to 3 things, lead
Yes.
to 3 things that eventually close down into where one thing.
Yeah, it's kind of like a funnel, and it's like a reverse funnel where you start out narrow and you go wide,
And then it goes back into a funnel.
and then you go back down to narrow again. And I will have dead ends. I will have clues that seemingly go nowhere. Now, I won't do that all the time, but I will have, so maybe he's got this list and he's got the castle.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, well, you go to the castle and there's nothing there. Like, you search it, there's just no one there. No one's been there. It just seems it's okay. Then you go do something else. And as you're talking to so-and-so, that person tells you about this very specific thing in the castle that you probably couldn't notice, or maybe you failed to come across it the first time.
Yeah.
And I'm not talking about like a secret door per se, but like if you stand here and say these magic words, an actual physical portal will open.
Or there's a whole entire dungeon or something underneath the castle, but the castle doesn't have the entrance to it.
Exactly. You got to go around the castle, the back, other side, something like that. Anyway, the point is, you create these things where maybe they feed on each other. So if you did it in the wrong order, you got to go back.
Mm-hmm.
I don't like to do that a lot either, because it just kind of feels like if you've ever played the game Mega Man, you have 9 choices, but in reality, you only had one. And you only really have one way to play that game, and the only way you would ever know that is by failing so many times or just cheating. And the internet wasn't a thing when Mega Man came out, so Anyway, not to devolve on that, but you don't want
Yeah,
to have that
but
experience
you could
either.
have, oh, we went to the castle, nothing's here. But if we do a really good search check, you might find little manuscripts pointing you to that there's a dungeon underneath, and then you could have them try to figure out that there's a dungeon, the entrance to that from there without having to go back to town.
Exactly. You could do that. You could also, in terms of the entire thing rolling out, what I would like to do is so when they talk to so and so, that person has maybe two leads, and then those leads might lead to one or two other things. Some of those might just lead to one thing, and that one thing's a dead end. So that whole track dies. So what I like to do is I literally just grab a piece of paper and I just draw little squares. And in the first
Mm-hmm.
square, I write whatever the hook's going to be, right? So George has a piece of paper, uh, darkness spell, he gets kidnapped. Cool.
Yeah.
I have the castle, I have so and so, I have this book that they have to find, and I have maybe another location. Cool. They go and they decide to go to the castle first. Fine. Castle has no in. They just talked about castle has no ability to get to the dungeon underneath from up top, and maybe that just looks like a dead end. So we just leave it alone. They
Mm-hmm.
go talk to so and so. So and so mentions a book in a library that's really hard to find that's not around there, and maybe one other thing. Maybe he sends them off on a side quest, and if they get that, then he can give them some sort of potion or something that could help
Yeah.
find the guy. You can think about it in any way you want. And then, so they got to go find a book. They already have another book they need to go find, so maybe it makes sense to go find both those books now. They find them, they read through them, and maybe with enough of a lore check or a history or some sort of check, they can determine a piece of information that tells them, oh, wait, there used to be a dungeon that had a secret entrance on the west side to get into the dungeon of that castle that we were at. Perfect. And then maybe the other book doesn't really have as much information as you think they do, but it can come into play later if they've read it. And then the last option would be this other place. Like maybe it was like maybe they need to go investigate the mayor's home because something's weird and shady there. So they go to the mayor of the town's home, and there they run into like three or four people. Really, only maybe two of them have certain pieces of information, but their pieces of information are broken. They're not complete. So, they heard about the kidnapping, and they know that there's like a cave nearby where people have been stolen before, have been locked away. Maybe he's there, and then the other person tells you, maybe something else about that cave, that cave has a secret entrance and a secret like doorway that you really need to find. Otherwise, it just looks like a normal cave.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, you can see how this all goes, and then you just keep. That's like now we're on what level 2 of that. So now I would start. Maybe I would do. So the next level, I'm just going to start moving them back down. Right. I'm going to start. This is a dead end. This doesn't go anywhere. Yep, that cave does have a thing, but there's no one actually in it. Or maybe you do find the guy, but he doesn't have any other information for you. So cool, you found the guy before he gets killed, but doesn't help progress the game along, which is good. I mean, you should find the guy, but so or at least his corpse or something,
Or
right?
something. I mean, you kind of have to get paid unless he paid you in advance.
Right. I mean, and maybe there's enough treasure involved that you get paid because of that. But
Mm-hmm.
so the point is, then I would start. Maybe I would go. The first step is 3 things. The second step is maybe 5 to 7 things. The third step down, the third level down, would be maybe 5 things, maybe 4 things. And then we're going to move into like 3 things. And then we're going to move into everything culminating and pointing to the
One
last
thing.
thing. Now, what I want to say about that really quick sounds like a throwaway line, but it's really not. I plan my encounter with the big bad, and I want to get the room perfect. Doesn't matter where the room is. I can almost picture the room going anywhere. So it doesn't really matter where I end up having to put it if I have to impromptu move it because, you guys did something weird. But I like to plan out what the room's going to look like, and then I can move it anywhere I want it to be. And then what's nice is I'll have certain, I don't know, maybe you're doing like a homebrew villain or something like that, and that villain is impervious to certain types of weapons, and you won't know that unless you read that other book that I dropped a
Mm-hmm.
long time ago, and it's like, oh wait, that thing's a blah blah blah. You read about this in that book.
Some of your dead ends might not be dead ends. It's
Exactly.
just helpful information for when you get to the last couple points for you to go easier.
Right, yeah. So it's not like you couldn't, like, if you decided not to go down one of the branches, it's not like it's impossible to find anything, and that's the big key piece. I try to make sure that if you followed even like two branches, you could still find the room where the big bad is. You can solve the mystery. You can solve the entire game, but it's not as easy for you to do. So I think of it. I actually think about tabletop kind of like a video game. It's like, yes, if you don't do any of the side quests and you just speed run through it, you can beat the guy potentially. It might take you an hour or two and all of your resources.
Mm-hmm.
Or you could take some time and do the side quests and level up and have and show up like 10 to 15
Yeah.
levels higher than you would if you speed run through it, which means that it's a lot easier to deal with.
Mm-hmm.
So that's how I deal with player choice and agency in a game. And it's because I like to give them a lot of choices, but I still control. It's not a full sandbox environment.
Yeah. You control the endpoint in the beginning, and then you give them helpful nudges to how to get to the endpoint in between.
Exactly. And all the way through. And then they have the choice where I can say, well, what do you want to do? It's not like, well, I guess I have one thing to do. It's like, well, I have four things to do. And another pro tip on this before we go, you could actually make one or two of those time sensitive against each other. So if you do one, you can't do the other.
Yeah, so your players have to choose, and they can't do all of them.
Or they could split the party, because that never goes wrong.
Uh-huh.
So anyway, that's how I would do it.
Makes sense. Hey, thanks for listening.
And for more resources, please go to skullrpg.com.